We we live in a weird world, man. We do. I mean, I was watching the Switch 2 Direct, as you do. I mean, I'm a Nintendo fan. I was excited, right? And I knew that From Software would probably have some sort of presence. It's a studio that's grown a lot in the past few years, not just in like size, right, but in notoriety. Their games have become much more popular. And I would even argue that Dark Souls, like the first Dark Souls, is probably the most influential single player game of the past like 20 years. There is no single player action game today with any sort of melee combat element that doesn't at least take a little bit from Dark Souls in some way, right? It's just a very, very influential game. So I was expecting to see them. I was expecting to see Elden Ring, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. I knew that, I mean, now the Switch 2 can probably run Elden Ring. Elden Ring is massively popular, critically acclaimed, so why not put it on there, right? It just made sense, and as a cool title to have on Nintendo Switch for like the release year, right? But I could have never, I could have never guessed. I would have never in a million years, right? Could I have guessed that Nintendo's biggest like third-party game to show off would have been a new From Software IP. We're seeing it for the first time. That's an actual Souls-like, and that it's exclusive for the Nintendo Switch 2. That blew my mind, right? That was there was a lot of announcements that day that like I was like, "Whoa, that's cool." But this is the one that like I was like, "Whoa, we're like, are you serious?" Like I could have never expected it, and I was really excited. It looked to be a little. It definitely had some Bloodborne DNA in there, but it was not Bloodborne, right? It still seemed different, right? It was a little more modern, a little bit more romantic, right? Like where Bloodborne sort of pulls a lot from like gothic fiction in general. This one seemed very vampiric, right? Like pulling specifically from vampire fiction, a lot more than Bloodborne ever did. So I was really excited. I mean, how could I not be? This is my favorite studio, my favorite creator, Hidetaka Miyazaki, working on yet another new thing. And I happen to think that whenever FromSoft works on new stuff, that's when they do their best work. The best Dark Souls game is the first one. And all of the other games they've released since then, whether it's Bloodborne and Sekiro or Elden Ring, they're all great. I think when they get to build from the ground up is when they make true magic, right? So I was excited. And then the day, started going on, and we started learning more stuff about the game. And the more that I learned, the less excited I was. So yeah, when you go into FromSoft website, you can check out the Duskbloods, and right there on genre, it'll say online multiplayer. And it is described as an experience with online multiplayer at its core as a PvP PvE game. And I mean, listen, I don't have anything against online games. Maybe I'm like some sort of weirdo, antisocial monster, but I just like single player games a lot. And I think that these guys are frankly the best in the industry at making them. So I guess it was just like a slap in the face. Like, oh, is this? That's what this is. Oh, okay. It wasn't exactly what I expected. So that was a bit of a hype killer for me. I don't have anything against, like I said, multiplayer. It's not for me. Particularly in these games. I have played PvP before. I mean, I still do sometimes. I think it's fun. But it's not like my main focus on this game. Mostly because, if I'm being honest, I'm pretty bad. I'm pretty bad at PvP in these sorts of games. Not only is internet where I live, just in general, pretty shitty. So connection is a huge issue, and there's a bunch of lag and delay. So that makes it a lot harder. But it's just, I guess it's the difference between watching a movie. No, that's stupid. I don't know what I was going to say, but you get it. You get where I'm going at. I just like single player games more. I think it's a lot more fun to sort of experience it like by yourself, at least in these sorts of games. And so, yeah, I was disappointed, but I wanted to wait. I wanted to talk about it when I saw it, but I wanted to wait a little bit till today because we knew that there was going to be an interview with Miyazaki by Nintendo that was going to be releasing today, giving us a little bit more of an in-depth look at the game, right? We got some, it's today now, and we have read the article, and I've decided that I want to talk about it. First thing that I should say is that, in my opinion, on like, whereas before I was super hyped, then I was not hyped at all when I learned. Now, after reading the article, I think my hype is starting to, come back a little bit. There are some interesting things here that I think there's enough meat here, I think, for me to sort of be like, okay, maybe this isn't exactly what I thought it was. It might be a little more interesting. So, I mean, yeah, let's get right into it. Let's talk about this article. So first, one of the first things we learned was that apparently this has been in development for a while. It was originally being developed for the Nintendo Switch, like the first Switch, and it had transitioned over to the Switch 2 hardware. And, well, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty cool. And I guess it's sort of weird to think that FromSoft has been working with Nintendo for that long, that they were at one point developing a game that they thought was going to come out on current gen consoles. So I'd be interested to see if this partnership sort of goes beyond this, right? I mean, we had that thing with Sony back when Bloodborne came out, where the FromSoft had signed this deal to produce a bunch of exclusives for them, which didn't work out, and now Sony is holding Bloodborne by the throat. They don't want to let it go, and they don't want to let anybody do anything with it. So I'd be interested to see, is this going to be like an ongoing thing? Is this a one-time game, just like, oh, one exclusive for Switch, then we keep doing other stuff for other things? Or is this going to be like how it is for a while? Is FromSoft just going to become a Nintendo studio? You know what I mean? So I'm interested in that, just because I think it's an interesting collaboration. They feel like such two polar opposites in my mind that seeing them this closely tied, it's cool, it's weird. I'm excited to see what it brings. We shall see. And the article also confirmed that yes, this is an experience with online multiplayer and PvP, PvE, PvPvE at its core, meaning that for a lot of the game, you're going to be fighting other players or other enemies. And you know what? It's a kick in the gut, but it is what it is. Let's keep going. One of the things that I was glad to hear was that they said that this isn't like, because, we have Night Rain, I mean, now we have this. It's almost saying like, are you guys just going to become like a multiplayer studio now, particularly because as I get into the article, you realize that this game and Night Rain are actually pretty similar. Is this just like what they're going to do now? And no, Miyazaki confirmed that this is just something they're doing right now, but they still plan on releasing more traditional Souls games in the future, which, great. I loved hearing it. I didn't need to hear it, but I'm glad that he said it, just so my fears could be quelled. So yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that we're still getting more normal FromSoft stuff in the future. Apparently, I suspected this from the trailer, but you play as multiple characters, over a dozen, they said, each one with their own unique actions, weapons, and abilities. And they got into some details later in the article about how character lore and other stuff works that I think is interesting, which I'll get into. But yeah, apparently you play as different characters referred to as Bloodsworn, which are on the hunt during the final days of humanity. I know, shocker, a Souls-like game takes place at the end of the world. Who could have known? They're looking for something called the First Blood or the Flight Blood, or I don't know, something like that. You can read about it yourself in the article. It's very clear that there's a lot of Bloodborne in this one. I don't think it's the same, but it explores a lot of similar themes, at least I think. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Apparently, the main characters of the game, the Bloodsworn, the reason that they have superpowers or they can do the video gamey things that they do is because their blood is special. And I don't know, again, this is a very, very vampire-y stuff, very, very Dracula-y stuff, right? That's the vibe I'm getting here. And also, something else that's really cool that he talked about is apparently that the game has, I think you could have seen some of this in the trailer, but apparently there are multiple settings and time periods which will be explored in the game, which I think is really cool. He talked about in the article how there's from the Victorian, more Gothic era to the end of the old modern era, right, with sort of trains and the first cars and stuff like that. So that's really cool. It's something. Time travel has definitely been explored in Souls before, in Dark Souls 1 and in Dark Souls 3. But apparently it's a core part of the experience here, which I think is really cool. I'd be interested to see how it plays out. Even in just the trailer, you can definitely see that there are different aesthetics at play. There's like a part where it's like a cave and there's like a monk, like almost like one of the Sekiro monks looking like. I mean, he's looks like a zombie almost, but that's sort of the vibe that he gives off. And then there's other parts where you can see the train and it seems a little more like steampunky, and then there's other parts where it seems a little bit more medieval. So I'd be interested to see how that all like comes together, and based on some information that we got later in the article, I think I know how that works. But I think that's pretty cool. That was the first thing, because at first I wasn't excited. That was the first thing I read. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's new. That's innovative, and I could see myself getting into that. So yeah, we also learned what Duskbloods stand for. So apparently, it's just another name for the Bloodsworn, the main characters of the game. They're called the Duskbloods, which is cool. Sort of sounds like a vampire family. Yeah, so I like it. Good title. Yet another thing that they told us about is that blood is, one of the main themes here. Talked about the power the blood carries and the legacy and history and blah, 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 a bunch of other shit. I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. I think that Miyazaki's very good at adding, like, themes to his games, right? Like, I think it's when I think sort of about what each one of those games is about, a very clear idea comes into my mind, right? Like, what is Dark Souls about? Dark Souls is about entropy, fundamentally, right? I think Dark Souls' main thesis is the idea that with time, that eventually, it's very depressing, things break, things die, right? That's sort of Dark Souls' main idea. Everything ends eventually. So that's their idea. And Bloodborne, I would say, is something akin to like knowledge. The idea that knowledge is both powerful and dangerous and exciting and scary, right? So that's sort of what that's all about. Then I would say that like Elden Ring is a game that's fundamentally about the nature of power, right? It's a story about gods fighting over like huge wars over these pieces of this thing that gives them power, and everybody seeks to sort of control the nature of reality, and whatever ending you choose will determine that. And most of the bosses you fight, when you learn about their lore, they usually ended up in the fucked up state they're in because of their search for power in some sort of way. So I think, again, I'm very interested to see how that plays out, but I'm going to have to see more because it says weird, like, oh, blood is one of the main themes. Okay, but what does that mean, right? So another thing that we learned is that the characters, and I talked about this, they play, or at least I think they're going to play, a little bit more like action game characters, right? Like a little bit of more dramatic moves and powers and flashy stuff. So that's cool. And, Night Rain is doing something similar. So I'm guessing that this will just do that, but more. So yeah, cool, standard. We shall see. So here's where they talked about the main gameplay loop, which I think is interesting. The main gameplay loop apparently consists of you have a little hub world where you can like customize your characters and build or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Then you go choose an online match and you're now online, right? And this is where I think the whole different settings and time periods come in. I think that, every online match will either have be set in like a different place, a different time period, a sort of different aesthetic. I think that's really cool, and that each one of those will tell you something about the larger like lore and story of the game. So that's really cool. I'm excited to see what that's all about. And apparently victory isn't just like, oh, defeat the boss. I mean, it might be that in some matches, or defeat the other guys. It might be that in some matches, but apparently there are many like different victory conditions and many different ways that you can win a match. It's not as straightforward as just going up to the other guy, the bad guy, and killing him. So I'd be interested to see how that works. And he even talked about what he referred to as opportunistic behavior within the game. He said that if you wanted to have a run where you don't really want to fight, that there are ways to do that through opportunistic behavior. Now, whether that means using something like stealth, whether that means collecting some sort of resource, talking your way, I don't know what it means, but it's interesting to me because these certainly, they're great games, but one of the things that you could say about them, and that isn't necessarily a flaw, just an observation, is that by the main way that you interact with those games is by violence, right? Hitting other things. So him talking about that, it's really interesting. I'd be interested to see what exactly that means. He also talked about each character being able to summon an entity. I don't know if that means that every character is able to summon a different entity, or you can choose one regardless of who you're playing as. And or because like in the trailer, there was this one part where we saw one of the characters, the one that looks like the Crow, summon the other character that looks like Dante if Dante was a vampire. And is that what he's referring to? Like, are the entities other Bloodsworn? Or so? Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. There's still a lot that remains to be seen. And this is, excuse me. This is the next thing that was also really interesting. This is also really cool. He talked about how lore in these games, as a lot of us know, it's presented a lore and story in a different way than it is to a lot of other like traditional AAA games today, right? Rather than cutscenes and dialogue, I mean, that stuff is there, but it tells you very little, right? If you want to know what's actually going on, you have to go look for items, read their descriptions, look for like obscure NPCs and talk to them, look at the world around you and sort of reach your own conclusions about what could have happened to make it the way that it is today. And that's really cool, and it's a core part of these games. And apparently that's something that's also being switched up a little bit in a way that I thought, again, if it's done really well, it sounds interesting, right? I mean, the way that they talked about it was like that after every match, whether you win or you lose, you go back to the hub world and you continue customizing your characters. But apparently by customizing your characters, you can also customize their blood and fate. That's the way that he talked about it, which will determine elements of their history as well as their relationships to other characters and other stuff within the game. Like, it's not just like hit harder, bigger sword, shit like that. That's really cool. Like, how exactly does that work? Is it something like a Persona, right? Like, that's what I'm sort of thinking about, right? In Persona, you know, it has this like really cool day-night cycle where during the day you go to school, you interact with other characters and do little activities, all of them mostly with the goal of building out relationships, right? Which then make the night sections of Persona, where you go into the dungeons and fight bad guys with your friends and all that stuff, a lot more engaging, because you're doing them with people that you spent a lot of time with, just doing normal stuff, right? So is that what this is? Or is it something similar? How does this work? Especially because it seems like such a wild idea from Software, right? Because he said, he didn't say that this was some sort of new feature separate from other stuff. He said that this is the new sort of way that with this game they want to tell the story, right? This is how they're gonna reveal lore. So by playing characters, do you find out more about them, or do you yourself make decisions about their history? It all sounds really interesting. And this was the other thing that really was like, okay, this might actually be pretty cool. I might actually be into this. So yeah, that's I'm really interested to see how that works out. If any of you have any ideas as to what that could be referring to, or how that could work, then leave them down in the comments. So yeah, that's really cool. Also, another thing that I liked that he said was that Miyazaki himself isn't very good at PvP, and that he designed the game with that in mind, to make it much more accessible to other people who aren't as good as PvP, which I think is what he talked about with opportunistic behavior and, you know, shit like that. I think there are ways to sort of circumvent that and still come out on top with your wits, which I think is really cool. I mean, if it is the case, right? We'll have to wait and see till the game is actually on our hands. So, I mean, yeah, that's sort of how I feel about it. I mean, at first I was a little apprehensive when I heard about the multiplayer thing, but now that I'm learning a little bit more about it, I mean, do I prefer this to a traditional Souls-like experience? No, not really. I mean, I haven't played this, right? This does sound like a very new thing in the sense that I can't think of many other games that are exactly like it, except for like Night Rain, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested. I think my biggest issue is how online is it, right? Like, is it going to be the sort of thing where you have to play online, but I can just join by myself, like join a match by myself or play by myself and still have fun, right, while interacting with other people online? or is it going to be like, oh no, you have to essentially like duo queuing, for example, like do it with your friends to be effective at this, right? Communication is necessary. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm still a little apprehensive, but I'm definitely more excited now that I know more about it. So yeah, we'll see. Also, just to finish off, oh, excuse me. Oh God, excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, one of the other things that he talked about was how the little rat guy, the rat guy with wings, apparently he's a very dapper elderly gentleman. Which I love hearing that. That's just a fun little thing. Apparently, he said that Miyazaki said that since he was working with Nintendo, he wanted to put a little Nintendoism in there. So they have a cute-ish character that's meant to sort of give you advice and guide you a little bit, which I think is very cool. I mean, it's not a Nintendo exclusive thing, right? I mean, Firekeepers served a similar-ish purpose in past Dark Souls games, so we'll see. But yeah, I just like that he referred to the rat with wings as a dapper elderly gentleman. I think that's very, very cool. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this one. I mean, I'm excited. I'm worried. I'm interested. And most of all, I'm very, very sick, which is why I've been coughing. But yeah, I mean, I have faith in Miyazaki. I think he'll kill it. He always does. He's again, I think the most talented person working in the industry right now. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I guess that's it from me. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Marcy signing out.